to the People Pleaser podcast. It's Corie, your host, and thanks for being here. This episode may sound a little different. I'm really hoping it has sound for starters, and that you may notice I'm coming in a little clearer. And I just want to really put it out there that I'm so new and I've been so humbled by the science of sound and the importance of clear audio and the chronology of this podcast is coming along in terms of its audio. I started by just holding my phone up to my mouth and talking directly into a voice memo. I then started using a microphone, and I've now added headphones. So it's been a progression, and right now I'm noticing that in my ears, like anytime I move, my body touches the cord, and I'm really hoping that that's not coming through. But anyways, all this to say, I am a work in progress, and I am taking the steps to making this come through a little bit better. I listened to one of my own episodes, as you do, and I found that I had to really crank the volume in my car. So I don't want that, because it was very alarming when, music came on afterwards and it was like blasting. It really showed me how low the volume was in that episode. So, I'm getting there. So thanks for bearing with me. Thanks for, any feedback if you have, or any, little tips, tricks. I'm here for it. I am not claiming to be an expert. I think I've made that really clear. Anyways, welcome. How's everybody doing? I want to start with a little, I don't know what I want to call it yet, but I want to take a moment to just recognize some people pleasing that's shown up for me, like just a raw example. And I actually have two examples, but they mimic the exact same pattern. And so this happened to me twice in the last week, where I received a text message that said, hey, what are you up to? Well, one was a text message and one was actually in person, like, hey, what are you up to on such and such day? And these were both from people I love, I adore, but I had this bodily reaction. I didn't like poo my pants or anything, not that type of bodily reaction, but mentally I felt this sense of panic, like, oh no, they want something from me. The details are vague. I want to say no. Whatever it is, I want to come up with some sort of excuse as to why I'm busy on that day, or why I will have to say no. And this has been kind of a pattern in my life where I've been, and I'm coming out of it, but I think I'm still, my body still thinks that I'm in this like state of burnout and in need of like self-preservation. And so even though my burnout and need for like rest and self-preservation is really only specific to like some areas of my life, my kind of like trauma response has been to apply it to all aspects of my life. And so even when these requests are coming from people I love, my body is saying, no, danger, you need to say no, you need to go into self-preservation mode. And so it was really good that in both those moments, I noticed that. I'm like, okay, I'm noticing that I want to just like make up an excuse, make up a lie, to just like self-soothe and like self-preserve. But truly, like what I actually want is to spend time with these people. I also want to have autonomy over like my schedule, my downtime. I want to be able to be intentional with how I fill my days and how much time I'm giving just myself for rest and downtime. But I also want to carve out intentional time to spend with people I love. And so instead of going to that like knee jerk, unconscious, like, I'm busy kind of response, I tried to just approach it with an openness and ask for more information. And I think that's fair. I think that's like more than acceptable. Um, and where the people pleasing could arise is if I then said yes to something when I actually want to say no. And so I didn't actually need to fall into any type of people pleasing because with both these examples, I was presented with things that I actually wanted to do. I had space to do. It worked within my schedule. All of those pieces were there. But I still want to bring that same awareness into all kinds of scenarios where I can give myself that pause to be like, is this something I actually want to do? Do I have time for this? Do I have energy for this? Like tuning into my body and just being like, is this where I want to invest my time, my resources? Is this going to like fulfill me in some ways? And this kind of, this bleeds into the conversation I actually want to have today. And this topic was actually brought forward on my Instagram. So just a little plug. I am beginning to use Instagram a little more intentionally, still finding my way. But I want to use it as a way of getting your feedback on topics to discuss. And so I did a poll this past week where I was asking for some input on episode ideas. And this was an idea that did come forward through Instagram. And it's the topic of like people pleasing and social obligations. So whether that's just like plans, like social plans, but like more specifically weddings, parties, dinners, these more structured events that can have maybe more of a sense of like obligation or responsibility. So that's, I think my preamble kind of lends well to that conversation because it's the same rules apply. So, I mean, I think as we move into the different phases of our life, different life events seem to kind of come, and they, in my experience, they kind of come in clusters. So, a lot of my friends and family members were getting married at the same time. A lot of us were having these kind of big birthdays, like 60th, or like in my family right now, there's a lot of like 70th and 60th birthdays. Babies, a lot of people are having babies, and the baby showers, and the also with weddings, there's like the bridal showers, there's the bachelorettes, there's the stags, there's the all types of these very like hallmark, what is that called when they're kind of like, oh, like rites of passage, like kind of like these big monumental events that we go through. And I mean, I've been on both sides of this. So as I mentioned in the relationship episode, I've been married now twice. I'm in my second marriage, but In my first marriage, I truly did go through all those motions. I went through, you know, the bachelorette and the bridal shower and the big wedding and um, what else was, oh, like getting the dress. And, there was a big asks. And, as the bride, I actually didn't initiate a lot of those asks. It was my bridal party, my maid of honor, my bridesmaids, and looking back on not just like the number of dates in a calendar that I was requesting of people, or that were kind of like dedicated to me getting married. That's one piece. Like, time is really precious, and I think we have to have that mindfulness of like, we all have busy lives, but the other piece was like the financial cost and the financial expectation. Like, if I think back to my bachelorette weekend, that was a huge financial cost. Like, it was a destination, like within, like on Vancouver Island, but still, like, people were traveling in from out of town. Like, people were taking flights. There was an Airbnb. There was like all kinds of events that we, there was a program. We went to the spa, we went surfing, we had dinners, we went ziplining. Like, there was so much that was asked of this group of people. And that's a huge commitment on so many different levels. And so, there were people who said, no, I can't make it. And obviously, like, that is like on my end of things, that's so understandable. But putting myself in their shoes, and I actually was in their shoes this past summer, which I'll get into in a minute, but like, that's a really hard thing to come forward and say. And especially like, if I think about my wedding, like, there were a lot of people. And so obviously, like, the more people, potentially, like, the lower the cost can be with like the Airbnb and things like that. But it's also like a really big group of people to say like, I can't do it. I'm sorry, I'm out. As a people pleaser, I see that as like, oh, there's like 10 people I'm potentially disappointing, or 10 people that will potentially have judgments. And, like, I like to think that, especially at the age I'm at now, and the people I have in my life, like, that's less likely. There's less likely to be judgment. But what also can happen is then other people are like, like, can I afford this? Is this also my way of kind of backing out? And yeah, so there's a whole host of like social expectations there, and like, feeling of like responsibility, expectation, obligation. And so this past summer, my sister got married and I was her maid of honor. And just like, I mean, there was no question in my mind that I wanted to accept her her request for me to be her maid of honor. Like, she's my little sister. I just feel this sense of like pride in that, and I want to rise to that responsibility. Also, like, just being that big sister, there is a sense of like duty that I possess. And just where I was at when that request came forward, I was chipping out of debt. Like, that was the biggest financial focus in my life. And I didn't want to, I guess, jeopardize that plan. That's kind of a strong word, but like I didn't want anything to come in between that plan. And I certainly didn't want to accrue any more debt. So, the bridesmaids and myself, we started a group chat, and these were women that I'd never met before. They were all my sister's friends, and my sister doesn't live, we don't live in the same city. She's relocated to a small community. We also grew up, like, she's my stepsister. So like she grew up part-time with living with her mom and part-time living with her dad, and her dad married my mom. So in our household. And so that's like a lot of context. But so all that to say, she went to a different high school in a different town. So her friends not only are from where she lives now, but also from high school, where we grew up in different towns. So I didn't know these bridesmaids, and like you have to trust that these are like my sister's friends, and there's like a common goal, a common like mentality that we're all kind of approaching like with the best interest of my sister. So that was all laid. I had trust in that, but we were all over the map in terms of like our vision for the bachelorette party. And I was trying to make things as like simple as possible because I had also this like ulterior motive of like it being financially feasible for me. And that was a really hard thing to come out and say, but I did eventually say, like, I'm on a limited budget. I have limited days off from my job. Like, I'll have to kind of utilize like a long weekend or things like that. And my sister lives pretty far, like, and there's, not a really convenient way of getting to her. Also for her, like it's not convenient for her to get out of where she is. Like it requires either a really long drive or, like a semi-long drive or flights. So anyways, like we were sifting through all the logistics and, because we were all coming with our different set of circumstances, I eventually had to say, you know what? I don't think I can make this work for me. Where I'm at financially, where I'm at geographically, with the time off I have available to me, it's just not making sense. And, there was a part of me that, like that, there was a lot of guilt in that. But at the same time, when I had made that decision internally, there was actually a sense of relief. So that was a really important thing to pay attention to. Like, is the guilt mine? Is the guilt mine? And really, when I talked to my sister, she was like, no problem. I totally get it. Like, I didn't go to your bachelorette party. And that was like such a moment too of like, oh yeah, that's true. And not that like was the hook I needed to get off, but it was also just like such a real moment of like, dude, I get it. And for me, like really what I was feeling concerned about was disappointing these women I'd never met because I had no control over their perceptions of me. I had to kind of accept that like they don't know me very well, and unfortunately, like they won't know me very well. And so coming to that decision just was like rich in like this conflict of needs, this conflict of expectations. And truthfully, like the truth did set me free. It felt so like liberating to just be like, this is the real shit. Like I'm not masking, I'm not being overly apologetic. I'm just like kind of taking a stance. And I mean, I did have to talk to my mom beforehand. I had to talk to my sister beforehand and, get that perspective, because I think for me, I also didn't want to come across as like, or having this like real fear based knee jerk reaction, like out of a stressed state. I wanted to be present in my decision. And so I think this is sort of like, what am I sharing here? I'm sharing that a lot of these decisions are rich in like all kinds of like societal pressure, social pressure, these internal expectations, these feelings of comparing yourself to others. When people show up for me, I kind of feel like, oh, I need to show up for them in the same way. And, that even comes up with like choosing bridesmaids. Like, oh, well, they asked me to be a bridesmaid, so do I need to ask them to be a bridesmaid? And let me just tell you, it doesn't work that way. And when you try to hold yourself to those types of rules, I can almost guarantee that there is an inner voice or an inner alarm bell going off that you are trying to ignore. And I I think that like it's not about necessarily responding to every single alarm bell in like a frantic way, but it's like, hey, what is this alarm bell telling me? Are there are there things going on beneath the surface that are impacting my ability to make this decision or show up in an authentic way? Like, there's varying ways to kind of experience this. Like, say, for example, it's a decision to go to a bachelorette party or, a destination wedding. Like, that's a pretty big decision, I would say. Like, to me, with just the financial responsibility of that, um, that's a pretty big decision. There's a lot of factors to sift through. Whereas, you know, on the opposite end, or, a lesser scale is like deciding to, um, if you're invited to a dinner and you are feeling like, oh, I'm not going to know very many people. Like, I don't really want to go for dinner. Like, I'm kind of feeling tired. I'm kind of feeling burnt out. That's maybe a different conversation. And there's like lower stakes. And in a situation like that, like, with the two examples I shared at the beginning of this podcast, like, one was like a, hey, what are you doing this Saturday? And, the the situation was actually my stepdad asking me if I wanted to go to Costco with him. Like, low stakes. I didn't have anything planned other than maybe wanting like a little bit of a lazy Saturday. But then when I learned that like he was flexible on timing, he wasn't, suggesting a really early start time. He had a very simple request, like going to Costco. That was like an easy, like, yeah. Um, but it would be a different set of circumstances if then I was asked to like kind of give up on my needs for rest, or if it kind of oh, wow, words, if it interfered with another plan, like say for example it was at the same time I planned to do something else. So there's all these like layers to these kind of social things. And I also, like, the unknown of the request was really what I think triggered my fear, because it's like setting yourself up to say like, okay, yes, I'm free. I'm free at that time, but I still want to have a say in what I'm free for. Like, I'm not free for everything. And so learning how to approach those types of things, to be like, yes, I am free on Saturday morning. What did you have in mind? And that's an area that I'm still I'm still getting comfortable with, because just because I'm free doesn't, I don't want to necessarily convey the message that I'm free for absolutely anything. So, Costco, yeah, I'm free for that. Um, However, signing up to do, like, this is a very specific example to my stepdad, signing up for like a paddling course for, 6 hours on Saturday, that's not really something I'm free for. So knowing too, like, and I'm a bit of a planner. I like to know what's ahead. I like to have time to make that decision, like being put on the spot. So it's also, an opportunity to be like, oh, Costco, you know what? I think I'm free, but can I get back to you? Like, when do you need this answer by? And to kind of give yourself more space. And like with Costco, that was a very easy, like I said, low stakes type decision. But even with that, like, I still am allowed to take my time in responding to these types of social asks. I think another thing that maybe where the question came from in terms of like weddings or like these, bridal showers, um, these social expectations, like, are we allowed to say no? Yes. That's why we're asked to RSVP. That's what, like, anyone who is asking us a question, asking us anything, should be approaching us with the expectation of a yes or a no, which means that we always should know that, like, a yes or a no is available to us. So, how do we get comfortable with that? Like, and what makes saying no so uncomfortable? And I mean, I don't think it's rocket science, and I think it's a lot about what I've already talked about. It's like that fear of disappointment, um, you know, that fear of being left out, I think, is another thing. It's like, well, logically, I know that I want to say no, like, this is why I'm saying no, but it doesn't still come without the fear, like that FOMO of like fear of missing out, um, fear of like that disappointment. And so, like, also too, when we're approaching no's, like, I don't think we need to over explain ourselves. That gets into some real people pleasing where we're like massaging our no, like kind of going over the top, but being clear in our reasons for declining, but also seeing like, hey, I can't make it to the wedding, or um, I can't make it on this girls' trip, or you know what, like, all types of these things too, like, they may trigger us in different ways. Like, for me, like a baby shower, that for in a certain time of my life, that was a little bit of a trigger. Not what I needed. So also finding like out, are there other ways that I can spend time with you? Like, our friendship, our connection is important to me. But this specific ask isn't really aligning for me. It's not really what I need. So also, like, knowing that you have options. You can say, "Hey, I love you. I love spending time with you. Um, I'm wondering if there's a different way we could spend time together." And then if there are people that are reaching out and like having these expectations of us, and like you're always saying no, or you're always wanting to say no, um, I think that's something worth paying attention to. And that may be an opportunity for a little exploration on that specific connection. And maybe you feel that this is a friend or a colleague or an acquaintance that um, you feel like your boundaries are like constantly being crossed, or you feel like they're asking too much of you, or you're like, huh, why is this person asking me to so many things? Like, and why don't I ever want to hang out with them? That sounds so harsh, but like maybe it's time to give that connection a little bit of thought and think of where they're potentially placing you in their lives and where you are placing them in your life. And that I know is a really tricky one. I think it's a true reality that sometimes where we have someone placed in our lives um, is different from where we are in their lives, or I don't know how I said that, but it's different. Um, and with that comes different expectations, different needs. Um, so things may feel a little out of balance, and finding ways to make those implicit sort of patterns a little more explicit, because you are doing no one any favors by stringing them along, by making them think that you're more invested in the friendship than you really are. Because we also know how it feels to be on the flip side of that. When we're like begging for someone's attention, or constantly being rejected, or, being canceled on, like I have a friendship where I have, we have a very long history, so it's very muddy, very unclear. Like there's almost it's like we've never not been in each other's lives. However, this is a friend who constantly cancels on me last minute. And I'm like, I continuously put myself out there, and, like they'll even ask me to hang out, and then they'll be the one to cancel. And I'm kind of like, I need to maybe rethink some boundaries in this friendship. Because it's no longer a one-off. It's no longer a coincidence. It's no longer a surprise when they cancel on me. It's become an expectation. And why am I in that? Why am I in that friendship? What is that friendship serving me? And so for me, I think a really big opportunity is to let them know, and I'm not going to get too far into this, but I have, in small ways, let them know. And it's continued to happen. So that's a little homework for me. I'm sitting here looking at my recording, and I'm like, God, if this doesn't have sound, I think I have a little PTSD from the episode I recorded with no sound, because I'm using these new headphones and I'm plugged into the microphone. It's like, ooh. Sorry, that was just a little anxious aside. So I know that this is a little, there's a lot of layers here, and there's a lot of different examples and ways you could kind of like go. So let me try to get clear on the takeaways. I would say the takeaways are tuning in with your body when these requests come your way, and noticing the kind of knee-jerk initial reaction. Just notice it and allow yourself time. And, if this is a time-sensitive request, maybe ask, okay, hey, I want some time. When do you need my answer? And I think a lot of these time-sensitive things are based on the other person's own anxiety or own need for time management and things like that. So we want to be respectful. We don't want to leave someone hanging. But Um, it doesn't have to be immediate. I would say it's probably safe to say 24 hours can pass and you can give yourself that 24 hours. But check in. Hey, I'm I'm thinking about I want to give this some thought. I'm thinking about, the other commitments I have and, the things I have on my own plate. Can I get back to you tomorrow? And getting comfortable with saying no without going into these like excessive apologetic explanations. Like a no is a full sentence. A no is an answer. I mean, given the varying relationships, we'll approach this differently, but to not be ashamed of a no if that is truly the answer. But also like a yes, you may say yes, and a yes can have boundaries, right? Like a yes you can say yes, but I'm not necessarily saying yes to everything, or I'm not like surrendering to like all of this plan. Like I'm still in the driver's seat of my own life. I still get to make choices. I can still have boundaries, but I want to be involved in a way that feels good for both of us. So what does that look like? Yeah, and I think too, like what I've already sort of said is like you can begin to also tune into like patterns. Like, are there certain things that like are a big no for you? Like, are weddings like kind of a trigger for you? Are baby showers kind of a trigger? Is a specific friend group like it not really making sense for you anymore, or a specific friendship, or are there family expectations that you're just like, you know what, like for my family, seeing them at Christmas and calling them on their birthday is enough. I don't need anything else at this point. Getting kind of comfortable with those types of boundaries, needs. Yeah, so I hope this is helpful. I hope this really normalizes some of these experiences that you might have. I know for me, I'm still very much in the getting comfortable stage and learning to not be overly apologetic. And because when you're overly apologetic, you're then expecting them to care for you. And that isn't really fair. And, like it's up to us to take care of ourselves and resource ourselves. And yeah, it's like we don't have to be overly apologetic. We can say no and feel confident that that's what we need, or we can say yes with boundaries and be comfortable with that that's what we need, and just sitting in our power a little bit more. Yeah. There are a lot of expectations that are put on us, and in turn, we then have a lot of expectations that we put on ourselves, and it's really important to tune into the role we allow these expectations to have in our life. And are they realistic? Are they healthy? Do they feel safe? Do they feel comfortable? Well, everyone, I am going to end it there. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for following along on Instagram at peoplepleaser.pod. That's at peoplepleaser, all one word, .pod. I'm really, really loving the chance to connect with some of you. And thank you so much for subscribing to this podcast, whether that's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you haven't already, a 5-star review goes a long way. Maybe a little comment, a little review. It takes, I would say, maybe 15 seconds. So if you have 15 seconds, that would just mean the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.